everybody. My name is Alejandro Olvera Novak. I'm mostly known in Seattle for being the founder of She Codes Now. If you haven't heard of us, we've basically been giving free programming classes around the area, and in the last 2 years, we've mentored over 1,200 women. Crazy, right? Well, if you ever want to go to any of our workshops, you're welcome to go. Just go to shecodesnow.com. But for now, I actually don't want to talk about She Codes Now efforts. I wanted to talk about a little bit different. I wanted to talk about cloud computing, and I wanted to talk to you specifically as the parent programmer, how to make cloud computing accessible to your kid. So I think that most of us know that nowadays it's really common for all these kid cloud computing tutorials to show up, right? All of our kids pretty much are probably either familiar with the concept of coding or maybe have already taken a coding class themselves. I mean, hey, Disney has a really fun coding tutorial. They have Moana coding tutorials, Toy Story coding tutorials, so on and so forth, right? What kid nowadays hasn't heard of the concept of coding? But you know what? I'm actually a little bit disappointed to notice that there's really a lack of resources or free educational tools to teach kids about higher concepts. What about things like Internet of Things? Or in this case, for this video, cloud computing. How do you, the programming parent, make a high-level concept like cloud computing accessible to your kid? Well, I wanted to give you an example of exactly how to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. How do you teach cloud computing with your kids? All you're going to need for this is a car, a light bulb, a pair of jeans, and an iPhone. Are you ready? Let's get started. So a couple years back, Accenture interviewed some kids to get their thoughts on the cloud. Turned out these kids were a lot smarter than they gave them credit for. One kid said, "In cloud computing, information is not stored on my computer, it's stored in the cloud. And this cloud can be accessed by any computer anywhere in the world." Another kid said, "It actually also takes off the work off my computer, so it's not bombarded with all kinds of work and stuff." What does this tell you? This shows you that kids understand a lot more than we think they do about high-level concepts in technology. Now, as you probably know, the cloud is basically a metaphor for the internet. The history behind the term cloud even dates back to the 1960s. Go ahead and let your kid know that the cloud is basically just an internet-based technology. Explain to them that businesses and organizations can now use highly sophisticated computer applications versus having to own expensive hardware, software, hiring staff, and maybe even renting huge rooms for all the hardware that they're going to need to place. All right, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about 5 fundamental cloud characteristics that any cloud computing programmer should be aware of. But now I'm going to give you examples of how to make this make sense for your kids. All right, cloud computing characteristic number 1, on-demand self-service. The consumer can perform all the actions needed to acquire the service themselves. All right, well, let's do a little bit of history trivia here. No doubt your kid grew up in the iPhone generation, so they probably don't know what a 1950 switchboard is. No problem. I actually think it's a really good idea to teach their kids about these kind of things so that they can better appreciate how much technology has changed across the ages. So go ahead and tell them, okay, on-demand self-service is kind of explained in the following way. Back in the day, you didn't have an iPhone, obviously. So because you didn't have an iPhone, you couldn't yourself just call someone else and be connected right away. No, in fact, you actually relied on a third party that would interconnect all the circuits of telephones, and then they would establish telephone calls between the subscribers. How crazy is that compared to what we do today? Well, now you get to tell your kid that in a similar way, before cloud computing, you would have to physically get the server racked up, then you'd have to assign to all the different IT teams, and then you have to configure so many settings. Crazy, right? But there you go. It's a really simple way to explain to your kids just how much technology has changed and what it means to be able to have on-demand self-service where you can perform all the actions needed. You have the power to do the things yourself. All right, next one. Number 2. Broad network access, the ability to access service from any standard device. This one's pretty easy too, right? No doubt your kid has their own tablet, their own iPhone. Go ahead and grab it and say, "Hey, you know how sometimes mommy uses her iPhone to access her email service?" Back in the day, it wasn't that simple. Back in the day, we had to use something like dial-up internet. I had to be actually physically plugged in to the wall so that I could access internet. This whole wireless internet thing was not a thing back then. explain to your kids just how cool internet itself has progressed. And you can tell them, hey, so now with your iPhone, you can access service anywhere. That's pretty cool. That didn't exist back in the day. Number 3, resource pooling. Compute, networking, and storage are pooled, and then they're shared among multiple customers. Okay, let's talk about electricity. There's that light bulb I told you about. Tell your kid, hey, as you know, all you got to do to use electricity in your room is to turn on the light. And you get to choose when you want to turn it on, when you want to turn it off. The different family members get to choose in which rooms they want it turned on, in which rooms they want the light turned off. And at the end of the day, which rooms are turned on, which ones are turned off, it doesn't really matter. It's just really easy to share that electricity among all of ourselves. And so, you see, that's a really good analogy for explaining resource pooling. No doubt your kid will totally understand it this way. All right, number 4, rapid elasticity. This allows you to scale and quickly shrink the capability of your cloud to match the level of your user's need or demand. All right, how do you explain this one? Pretty simple. Do you have a pair of jeans in your closet? Go ahead and take them out. Now check the tag. Does it have spandex? I bet you know where I'm going with this one. Exactly. Spandex can shrink or scale as needed. In a similar way, that's basically what rapid elasticity allows you to do. Number 5, metering. This tracks and controls the level or cost of usage. Okay, do you have a car? No problem. Go ahead and show them a picture, if you don't, of how a speed meter or a gauge on your car looks, and then say, hey guys, you know that this is what measures and displays the speed that I'm going at when I'm driving. In a similar way, that's what metering can also mean when you're talking about cloud computing concepts. Okay, so we covered 5 different fundamental cloud characteristics, and we showed you basic examples that could make your kid understand what those were in their language, in their way of thinking. But now let's go ahead and show your kid just how useful the cloud is for everyday users. Now that they understand a little bit about what you can do with the cloud, let's show them how to create a file and how easy it is to upload it to the cloud. Now, in my example, I'm actually going to be using AWS, and I'll be relying on Amazon's S3 service, and more specifically, I'm going to be using S3 buckets. S3 buckets are similar to file folders, so basically they are containers in which you can store your files in. Pretty simple, no need to make it more complicated for your kid. So let's just go ahead and show them how we're going to do this. All right, so I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but quick pro tip, Amazon AWS actually has a really great section of 10-minute tutorials to show you how to do all kinds of things, all kinds of different services. In this case, if you wanted to, later on in your own time, you can go through the S3 tutorial that shows you how to store and retrieve a file. It's a really basic one, but highly recommended. In this case, here we are, Amazon S3, and we're going to go ahead and create a bucket, but not just yet. First, we need to create the file that we're going to place in that bucket. So let's go ahead to our terminal and tell our kids, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead to our desktop and see if we have any files there or any content. So we're going to do the ls command, and you explain to your kid what that means. Interesting. I have a file there named fun. Okay. What if I wanted to add another file? Maybe I want to add a file that's called congrats HTML. All right, I'm going to click ls again, and now you show your kid, look, the terminal is showing me that I now have 2 files, congrats HTML and fun HTML. Let's use one of them for our project today. So I'm going to go ahead and open my IDE, and I'm going to go ahead and open the congrats file, and I'm going to go ahead and start creating my file. Now, since this is for your kid, we're actually going to keep it pretty basic. If you were surprised by how quickly that filled up, I was actually using the Emmet plugin. It basically auto-completes a lot of different HTML5 things, and so it saves you so much time, especially for front-end work. So here we go. I basically have a small template here ready to go, and since this is for kids, we're going to keep it really basic. We're just going to create an H1. And we're not going to say hello world, because that's boring. Everybody does that. We're going to say, congratulations, kiddo, right? Because your kiddo is doing a really good job. They're learning a lot right now. And maybe you want to change the page title and show them how cool that is. You're like, hey, have you ever noticed that sometimes the tab has a name or an image in it? You can change that right here. So what do we want to call this? Maybe we want to say hello. Let's go ahead and do that, and a cute little smiley face. Now we're going to save, and we're going to go ahead and open this file in our browser. So let's go ahead and do that. Boom. There we go. Congratulations, kiddo. Hello. How cool is that? Now your kid created an HTML file and they got to preview it right away. Okay. Well, this is just an HTML file. This is really simple, right? What about when you're actually doing an entire Node.js application? What about when you're managing different Docker containers? There's all kinds of crazy things that programmers have to do, millions of files, millions and millions and millions of lines of code that you will be writing out in the rest of your life. So tell your kid, right now, as you can see in my Finder on my desktop, all I have locally in my machine are two files. I have one HTML file called congrats and another one called fun. But that's not what it's going to be like in my work computer. Show your kid an example of maybe all the different files that you have, all the different kinds of programming technologies that you've used. Maybe you're a full stack developer, maybe you do front end and back end. Show them a little bit about some of the stuff that you do. And then really quickly, your kid is going to notice, oh my goodness, how in the world are you going to store all those files? You're going to use up your entire hard drive. Exactly. And that's not really the most logical thing to do. So that's where the cloud comes in. And you tell your kid, hey, instead of using up all the space on my computer, I can actually save my files and upload them to the cloud. How cool is that? So again, this is where Amazon comes in. And we're going to go ahead and create that bucket that we mentioned earlier so that we can store our file. Now, I'm going to go ahead and name it Yoshi something. And why Yoshi? Well, I mean, because what kid doesn't love playing Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi? Classics, right? So a good example for your kids and an awesome bucket container, if I may say so myself. And maybe go ahead and explain to your kid what regions are. Tell them what a virtual machine is. Explain to them that now you don't have to have physical servers, right? You don't have to have all these physical hardware and computer and take up bunches of space. No. You now have diverse virtual machines all across the world in which you can upload and save your data. So in this case, you happen to be storing things in the cloud, and the region that you're working with right now is North Virginia. That's pretty cool. Tell your kid a little bit about that. I think they'll find that interesting. Now let's see if my bucket name has been taken. Oh, cool. It was a unique bucket name. I didn't have to come up and try to use another one. Now, if this was an adult tutorial, we would talk about all kinds of things, right? We'd probably talk about versioning. Maybe we would talk about tags. We might even cover default encryption. But again, this is a tutorial about how to make cloud computing accessible to your child. So we're just going to keep it basic. So we're just going to go ahead and skip and use pretty much default configurations for everything. All right, there's our bucket. So let's go ahead and click on that. It's empty. Of course it is. We need to upload our file. So you show your kid how to click the upload button. See, pretty simple. And hey, there's our congrats file. Let's go ahead and upload it. Let's go. Boom, boom, boom. Let's finish this off. All right. Dun, dun, dun. There it is. Show your kid, oh my goodness, see? Now I have my bucket container, Yoshi, blah, 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 blah. There's no way I'm going to read that long number. Sorry. Not sorry. And right here you can see that there's our file that we uploaded. How cool is that? Look at how easy it was to store something on the cloud. Just like that. Well, there you go. As you can see, teaching your kids how to use principles related to cloud technology may not be as hard as you thought it was. Congratulations on teaching your kid about how cool it is. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was fun, and talk later. Bye-bye.